Finally, we got the confirmation that Lawson was indeed out. There was a lot of talk about it yesterday. We had a live stream where we spent almost half an hour just discussing this. The stream was almost 2 hours long. If you missed it, go check it out. It was really good, excellent even. Yesterday's stream was packed. We reacted to Leclerc's radio, the F1 25 game trailer, the new Formula 1 game, and a lot of other cool stuff. If you haven't seen it yet, take a look. Make sure to subscribe to Resec Express, and next Wednesday at 8 p.m., we'll have a pre-Japanese GP live stream. Alright, consider this your heads up. But let's get to it. The confirmation has officially been made. Red Bull confirmed, as was already rumored, that Yuki Tsunoda will replace Liam Lawson in the team. Now, let's break this down into 3 parts, because there are implications to all of this. Starting with the confirmation. It doesn't surprise anyone after the rumors. But here's the thing, why even put the guy in the car if you knew that if he didn't perform well, you'd fire him after just 2, 3, or 4 races? Last year, when I told you all that I thought Tsunoda was a better choice than Lawson, even before Lawson was announced, I said it based on experience. Tsunoda has an aggressive driving style, while Lawson carried a huge risk of not working out. And that's exactly what happened. It's not like Red Bull didn't have data, but they chose to bet on their own junior driver instead of the Honda-backed driver, and in the end, they paid the price. Now, Christian Horner is saying that Lawson even made a sacrifice for Red Bull in the last Grand Prix. According to Horner, they made a decision to test some major modifications on Lawson's car in the last race. So, Lawson used the race to test setups and gather valuable data for Red Bull. That's interesting, but the fact remains, Red Bull had to sacrifice one of their cars to get that data. The key point here is, Red Bull doesn't have 2 competitive cars, they have 1. And because of that, they are realizing that you can't fight for the Constructors' Championship, and sometimes even the Drivers' Championship, without a strong second driver supporting the team. So, even if Lawson did make a sacrifice for the team, as Horner claims, it's still not enough for Red Bull. Red Bull isn't a midfield team. They fight for titles. They'll likely have a competitive car all season, so they can't afford to have only one car performing well. But I stand by my position. This is the same situation as with Jack Doohan that we've been talking about since last year. If you hire a driver knowing you'll fire him at the first mistake, why hire him in the first place? It's better to just go with the other guy you're rooting for. In Red Bull's case, they put Lawson in because he's a Red Bull junior driver, not a Honda-backed one, while Tsunoda was a more experienced choice. But does this mean Tsunoda will necessarily perform well? We'll talk about that in a second. The Lawson situation. It's clear that he wasn't ready. Red Bull essentially swapped one problem for another when they replaced De Vries with Lawson, but with the added issue of the car's performance. And this leads us to Max Verstappen's reaction. Now, let's talk about Max Verstappen in all of this. Why? Because Max
Yuki
liked the post
Tsunoda
from
is
Van
set to
Dorn.
take on a dual
Remember
role
Van
in
Dorn?
the 2025
Well,
Formula
in his
1
post,
season.
he said,
In addition to being
I'm tired of
one
seeing
the main
comments
drivers
about
for racing
Formula
bulls,
1 being a high-performance
the Japanese
sport.
drivers
If you don't
expected to
deliver,
also assume
you're
the
out.
role of reserve driver for
But then
Red
he
Bull.
adds,
According
what
to
Red Bull is doing
motorsport.com,
looks more like a panic
the
move,
24-year-old
like someone
will compete in
desperate,
his fifth
rather than a
F1 season
decision
in
based on
2025,
high-performance athletes.
all with racing bulls.
And Max
Formerly
Verstappen liked
AlphaTauri
this
and
post.
RB.
Of
Red
course,
Bull's junior
this is fueling a lot of
where he was
speculation,
defeated in the battle
especially
for seat
since,
alongside
as I mentioned
Max
in yesterday's
Verstappen
video,
by his former teammate
Verstappen
Liam
doesn't
Lawson.
seem happy with this change.
Tsunoda had one of his best seasons in
Verstappen wants
2024.
stability in the team.
Consistently
He wants a
scoring points
cohesive,
and outperforming
well-functioning
his teammates.
environment.
Daniel
And that's a
Ricciardo
complete
and Lawson,
opposite of what Red
putting him in
Bull
the
has
running
been for
for
the
Red
past few
Bull's
months,
second seat,
or even the past year,
following the
since
dismissal
the
of
Christian
Sergio
Horner
Perez.
scandal blew up.
However,
So,
he was ultimately
Verstappen
overlooked
isn't
in
happy
favor
about
of
this.
New Zealand's
We'll
Lawson,
definitely see
who will
side
make his
effects,
full-time
including
debut
the
in
possibility of
2025.
Verstappen leaving,
Now,
which I'll talk
Tsunoda
about in
is set
another
to take
video.
on the reserve driver
Is
position,
like on this post,
becoming the
which is
first
pretty
option
direct
in
and
case
aggressive,
Verstappen or
just
Lawson
shows that he's
are
committed
unable
to
to
expressing his
compete in a
opinion,
race.
that he
This
wanted
development
Lawson to
raises
stay,
further
that it would have been
questions
ideal
about
to give him a
Tsunoda's
few more
future
races.
within
I'm
Red
not
Bull's
surprised by
structure.
Verstappen.
With the end of the partnership
He'll
with
probably
Honda,
start doing
many
this
are
publicly
wondering
more
if the
often,
Japanese driver
even though
will
he
be
has a
retained
good
by the
relationship with
energy drink brand
Tsunoda.
moving forward.
When it comes to stability,
Recently,
Max
team
Verstappen
principal
did
Christian
not like
Horner
this
stated
change.
that it would not make
And
sense
here's
to
the
keep
risk.
Tsunoda
What if
he
it
had
doesn't
no
work?
chance of racing
Then
for the main
Verstappen
team.
might just say,
Yuki
I told
Tsunoda's
you
dual
so.
role in the 2025
Tsunoda's
Formula
sentence.
1 season
Now,
presents
we get
both
to the main point.
opportunities
Tsunoda,
challenges
by
for his
accepting
future
this
at
move
Red
to
Bull.
Red Bull,
The
as he
Japanese
signed his own
driver
death
will continue
sentence.
with racing
In
bulls.
yesterday's live
The team
stream,
formerly
we
known
talk
as
about how
AlphaTauri.
some drivers,
But in
like
addition to his
Bortoleto or
regular racing
Drugovic,
duties,
might not want to
Tsunoda
take
will
this seat
also
because
serve
they'd
as a
just be set up
reserve
to
driver
fail.
for Red Bull.
But for Tsunoda,
Stepping in
who's
as a
already an
match Verstappen
experienced
or
driver
Liam
with
Lawson
nowhere else to
are
go,
unavailable.
if Honda signed
Tsunoda had a
Verstappen
strong
for Aston
2024
Martin,
season.
Tsunoda isn't a Red Bull
Consistently
favorite,
outperforming teammates
so he'd never get
Daniel
promoted.
Ricciardo and Liam
Ricciardo
Lawson,
would.
which
This is
led
the
many to
opportunity of a
believe he could secure
lifetime.
the second seat
Tsunoda has a
alongside
chance to
Verstappen.
prove he can tame this
However,
Red Bull, and in
despite
doing
his
so,
impressive performance,
change Red Bull's
Tsunoda
perception
was
of him.
ultimately passed
But here's the
over in
catch:
favor of
he's
Lawson,
still a Honda
who
driver.
will make his
And at the
full-time
first
F1
opportunity,
debut in
if two
2025.
decent Red Bull juniors
As a
show
result,
up, Tsunoda will be
Tsunoda's
out.
role as reserve
So,
driver highlights
this
his
is
importance
Tsunoda's
within
golden
the Red Bull
opportunity.
family.
But at the same
But it
time,
also raises
it could
questions
completely
about his
backfire.
long-term future
I
with the
think
team.
he's already made a
With
name for
Red Bull's
himself as a
partnership
solid
with Honda
midfield
ending,
driver.
and
So
Tsunoda's
even if Red
prospects
Bull
of
drops
racing
him,
in the main
a
team
midfield
growing
team might
uncertain.
still want him.
It's clear
But
that
in a
the
top team,
Japanese driver
this is his
faces a
one
pivotal
shot.
moment in
I was
his
watching
F1
some
career.
onboard comparisons
As Red
between
Bull
Lawson and
team principal
Tsunoda in
Christian
China
Horner
during
recently
qualifying,
pointed out,
and Lawson
it
had
would be
zero
difficult
confidence
for the
in
team
corner
to retain
exits.
Tsunoda
Why?
if he has
Because
no
the Red
chance of
Bull is
racing
extremely
with a senior
sensitive.
team in the future.
It's a car where the front end
remains to
snaps
be seen how
aggressively,
Tsunoda
so the
will
driver
adapt
needs
to this
incredible
new
precision in
and
field,
whether he can leverage
something
the
that
reserve driver
apparently
position
only
into a chance to
Verstappen
re-enter
has
the
mastered
main
so
lineup
far.
in the coming season.
This is exactly what Albon mentioned in an interview, which I'll keep referencing as long as it's relevant. So, either Tsunoda adapts to this extreme Red Bull, or Red Bull has to soften the car's behavior to make it more manageable for the second
Yuki
driver,
Tsunoda
even
is
if
set
that
to
makes
take
it
on a
slightly
dual
slower.
role in the
Right now,
2025
Red
Formula
Bull's
One
situation
season.
is
In
one
addition to
car that
being one
works
of the main
perfectly for
drivers for
Verstappen,
racing
and
bulls,
another that the second
the
driver
Japanese
can't handle.
driver is expected
This has
to
been
also
Red Bull's
assume the
reality
role
for
of reserve
years.
driver for Red Bull.
So, Tsunoda
According
may
to
have signed his own
motorsport.com,
downfall, but
the
it's also his
24-year-old
biggest
will compete
opportunity.
in his fifth
There's a
F1
meme going
season in
around.
2025,
Would you make this deal?
all with racing bulls.
In Tsunoda's
Formerly
case,
AlphaTauri
he has
and
no
RB,
other choice.
Red Bull's
Either he
junior
takes a
team,
risk and tries
where
to
he
make
was
an
defeated
impact,
in the battle for the
or is
seat
stuck with no
alongside
future.
Max Verstappen
And if he
by his
fails,
former
what
teammate
will Red
Liam
Bull
Lawson.
do? Replace him in 2 weeks? 2 races? People are joking that they'll bring back Mark Webber, LOL. But realistically, they just throw Ricciardo in and burn him out too. The problem goes beyond the driver. You can question some of the drivers, but the car itself is a huge factor. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Later today, we'll have another video. Big hug, and see you next time. Waving hand sign.